showing about the development of male and female reproductive parts of the flower. And using the diagram again, you are required to describe the process until the formation of a diploid zygote. So in this diagram, you have a little bit of help from the diagram itself. Let's just look at it. So you are given 10 marks, so you should have about 10 points. So number one is that the pollen grains is located in the anther, and then you have your pollen mother cell. This will undergo meiosis to produce 4 haploid cells. It's not shown in the diagram, but this is part of the process. And then the haploid cells will further divide into 1 tube nucleus and 1 generative nucleus. Okay, and then during pollination, this is the pollen, and it will stick the stigma. So this is the pollination process. The pollen grain will germinate because there is a sucrose solution that is coming from the stigma. And then you will have a generative nucleus, which will divide into 2 gametes, and this gamete will follow, these 2 of them will follow the tube nucleus in the pollen tube to reach the micropyle, and it's also not shown here. Once it reaches the micropyle, the tube nucleus will disintegrate, and the 2 gametes will then enter the ovule. Because there are 2 of them, they will have double fertilization. One will fuse with the ovum, the other one will fuse with the 2 polar nuclei. So these are basically the steps that you need to remember, and for the female and male reproductive parts of the flower and the process for the fertilization. So to put all of these points into a form of answer, we can have a look over here. First, you can say the pollen grains or the male gamete, they are produced in the anther. And next, each of the pollen mother cell, it will undergo meiosis to produce 4 haploid cells, which will then develop into the pollen grains. And then next, number 3, the nucleus of each haploid cells will divide by mitosis to form 1 tube nucleus and 1 generative nucleus. So remember, from this you always have 1 tube nucleus and 1 generative nucleus. And during the pollination process, a pollen grain will stick onto the stigma, and then the secretion of a sucrose solution on the stigma will stimulate the pollen grain to start to germinate, and from this the pollen tube is formed. So during the growth of the pollen tube, the generative nucleus will divide via mitosis to produce 2 male gametes, and these 2 male gametes will follow right behind the tube nucleus down the pollen tube until they reach the micropyle. And after this, once the gametes have reached the micropyle, the tube nucleus will disintegrate, and you are now only left with 2 male gametes that will enter the ovule, and then this would have the double fertilization. So during the double fertilization, 1 male gamete will fuse with the ovum, and this will form the diploid zygote, which is a 2N, and the other male gamete will fuse with the 2 polar nuclei to form a triploid nucleus, which is a 3N. So this is the entire process that you need to describe for 9A. And for 9B, you are also given 10 marks. And here they are showing several methods of family planning and their effectiveness. And here they ask you to discuss 3 effective methods for family planning, and also the next one here, you need to suggest 1 method which is the best that can help them to plan their family. Here you have 5. You can actually choose any one of them. However, you need to choose 3 effective methods. So you have to judge by number of pregnancies. So the most effective method will have the least number of pregnancies, and the least effective method will have the most number of pregnancies. So here the least pregnancies come from IUD, followed by diaphragm, and then condom. And the worst or the least effective are these 2 here. So you can just describe these 3 methods. So, and then later on you have to describe the most effective, and this would be IUD, because you have only 1 pregnancy in every 100 women in a year. So let's see how we put this into answers. So first method is condom. So you should try to have about 3 points for this. So the condom is made of latex and is worn by the male on the penis. It prevents sperm from entering the vagina, and also because of that, you would not have fertilization, and therefore pregnancy is effectively avoided. For IUD, which stands for intrauterine device, it is actually a plastic coated coil that is inserted into the uterus by doctors, and that's why it's called the intrauterine device. It can be left in the uterus for up to 2 years. And this prevents implantation of the embryo by irritating the endometrium wall, and because of that, the development of zygote is not possible, and also then you do not have any pregnancy. For diaphragm, this is a piece of dome-shaped silicone. It is inserted into the vagina to cover the cervix, and it prevents the sperm from entering the uterus, and it works well in combination with spermicide. So finally, very important, please state the most effective method or the best method. Here it will be the IUD, because it only has one pregnancy that occurs in every 100 women.